everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Hangout number 98. And I suddenly have fruit flies. What the heck? It's really annoying. I don't even have any fruit on the counter. What? So if you see me doing this, it's because it's driving me crazy. All right. They have such good timing. They were not here until I sat down to do the show. So thanks, fruit flies. It's not technical problems today. It's little teeny problems today. So welcome everybody who's in the chat room. We have Michaela's here, Emily's here, Kelly's here. Let's see who else. CJ is here. Texas Redhead is here. Who else is here? Did I just say Molly already? I start repeating myself. Yes, indeed, I do. And I'm going back up to the top. And Linda is here, or Linda was here. If you're coming in now, welcome. And if you would like to be in the chat room, which I would love to have you in the chat room, please do. What in the world? Oh, oh, this is funny. How do you like this? This is haze behind me. Isn't this kind of cool? I'm not supposed to click this button unless I'm in front of the green screen because I don't have a green screen behind me. And usually I don't even go here. I just tell people, hey, join Patreon. The link is below. And I completely forgot that I was not sitting in front of the green screen. And this is what happens. Oh, it's kind of cool. You know, it's kind of got a halo around. Isn't that nice? So you can see that. Join Patreon. $5 a month, 8 shows. You can be in the chat room. We have a great community. And it helps support the channel. And the rest of it, you can't even see. So I think I'll take that off. Oops. What in the? All right. Now I'm having, oh no, here we go. Did I say I was having no technical issues? Okay, maybe I am. Anyway, if you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. Please do check the playlists and see what I've done. And if you have a specific case you're interested in, please go to the search engine on YouTube and put in Profiler Pat Brown in the case that you want to see if I've done it, because I often get these cases. Could you please analyze this case? And I'm like, yeah, I've already done it. Here's the link. But you can check always in the search engine to see what I've done, or you can just scroll through the playlist and see what cases I've done. All right. Let's see if I can get back on track here. Okay. Fruit flies, can't hit the right buttons. It's one of those days again. Okay, so what? Wait a minute. Are you having trouble hearing me? Or is that, who's having trouble here? CJ, are you having trouble? You can't see or hear me? Are you the only one? Okay, everybody tell me, can you see and hear me okay before I go on and do a show that is pointless? Let me know. I'm waiting patiently here. Before I go to my first story, which is going to be, of course, I got to talk about Rex Heuermann. Okay, you can see him here. Okay, you can see and hear me. Good. I don't know what happened. It's a great start. It's a hangout. Anyway. All right. Everybody's good. Okay, you can stop telling me. All right. All right, here we go. Rex Heuermann. All right. So a few more things on him. He's the guy has been charged in the Gilgo Beach, 3 of the Gilgo Beach murders in Long Island, and lots of stuff has come out. And I do not do ongoing commentary. It's not my thing. I don't do news shows, and I don't do 3-hour shows every day talking about every single piece of information. It's not me. But good old Rex here. Here he is. And one of the things they said about him, which I had been asked about, actually. I was asked why were hairs from his wife found on a couple of the victims in the bindings, mind you. My theory is he had the women in his marital bed. You know, when you got to tie people up and you want to spend time with them, you have a couple choices. You have a basement, you have a shed, you create an actual dungeon someplace. You did have these storage units. Theoretically, you could take them to storage units. But because his wife's hair was there and in the bindings, it seemed to me he had the women in a place where his wife was also spending time. I'd like to know about the bed, because in my opinion, it would really help if they had a good headboard or a four-poster, because you can tie people to those really well. But I wouldn't be surprised if he actually, when his wife was out of town and the children were out of town, he brought the women back actually to his bedroom and had them there. They have said that one of the women was killed in the home, at least one. Which does not surprise me. I don't know how they were killed. Mind you, this information hasn't been made clear. Did he strangle them and then later on do other things to them? I don't know. I don't try to speculate things I have no clue of. But the wife's hair and the bindings made me say, I'm going to guess those women might be in the old marital bed. And I'm sure his wife is thrilled. She's filed for divorce. And I'm sure she's creeped out as all get out, poor woman. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to think your mate is, I don't know, cheating on you. But cheating on you by picking up prostitutes and killing them probably is not what you had in mind, as when he went a little, did something that you didn't approve of. And people say, well, why wouldn't she know these things? Why wouldn't she have a clue? And I probably will do a whole show on this because the reason that most serial killers can have a wife and get away with this kind of things is because when they are dating or looking for someone to marry, they find the person who is gullible. That's what they're looking for. They're not going to take the person who's a stand-up, hey, what do you think you're doing? I'm going to check into things. No. They're going to look for the gullible one. When they find the gullible one, they know they've got the right person. Somebody they can control, somebody they can lie to, and they're not going to be overly questioned. They're going to find that person. So I'm going to do a whole show on that. But that's what I think. That's how he probably got the wife. And that's why many times, feel sorry for the wives, really. Honest to God. I mean, it's not like they actually knew what was going on, unless you're like Carla Homolka. Then you were part and parcel of what was going on. But if you were just a wife of a serial killer and he has gotten away with it for years, well, you probably know no more than anybody else does. And you couldn't imagine. Here's the thing is, it's hard to imagine that the person that you're lying in bed with at night, sometimes snuggling with, making love with, had another woman in the bed and killed her. I mean, who thinks of that, And he's the father of your children, and he goes to work, and he comes home, and probably they watch movies and have pizza, which he did have pizza. That's how they got his DNA. In other words, the normal part of life is the majority. People think of serial killers as spending literally 24 hours a day. Killing. They don't. A lot of serial killers have long, like a lot of time in between their killings, sometimes even years. Now, mind you, he seemed to be a bit heavy on the porn stuff. Okay. But she didn't know about that. But what he probably said, I got to go do some work, honey. And he found himself some work to do that she had no clue about. So I have a little sympathy for the wives because, yes, they're gullible. Maybe in denial, but they probably were chosen because they were that kind of person to begin with. They were like a lot sweeter than me. Let me put it that way. I'm like, checking you out. But a lot of people aren't, so they're just more open-hearted and giving, and they're wonderful people. And if they marry the right person, they're the people you would love for a neighbor, the woman you would want for your daughter-in-law to marry your son. She'd be a wonderful human being. But unfortunately, if she's also very gullible, she might marry Rex Heuermann, and that would suck. So that's my thoughts on that. I also want to talk about Shannon Gilbert. And I don't know if that's true, so I'm not going to put it on the screen, but really? I'm Michaela. And if you did it, you're probably a really nice person. Okay. Kelly says it's terrible about his wife and kids. That's for sure. Oh my God, the poor children. You know, it's hard enough for children in a divorce situation where they have to take sides. You know, with mom, the good person, dad, the bad person. Is dad the good person? Mom, the bad person. Do I love both of them, or should I be mad at somebody? And sometimes there's reason to be mad at one of them if there's infidelity going on. But this isn't infidelity. Your daddy is a serial killer. You know, I mean, poor children. I mean, I can't think of anything worse in the world. And you know what really pissed me off? The freaking media vultures. I saw picture after picture after picture after picture of the wife and the children walking along, hanging out here. There are tons of pictures of them. You sick. I'm on YouTube. I'm going to control myself. I will never show the pictures of those children. What's the point? I mean, they have to. They're adults and they have to go through their lives now, and everybody knows. I mean, it's really sad. Really, really super, super sad. Well, there's a truth in that. You know, when you're down on your money, don't have as much money as you wish you had that week, killing the sex worker that you hire saves you money. That is actually true. This is true. I heard his wife was out of town for the murders. Yes, I actually, one of my profiles was that chances are, because these women appeared to me to have been brought back to a location where he spent time with them, binding them, raping them, torturing them, bondage, binding, all this kind of stuff. He had to have a place to do it. This is not what you do in your car, okay? That's a different kind of, it's not what you do when you jump out of the bushes. You know, then you just, hit the woman over the head, strangle her, rape her, and you're done. 15 minutes, like, okay, I got to go home now. Got my bosses writing, This guy had to have time. And to have time, you have to have a place to do things. And if you don't live alone or have a garage that's far, far removed on the property, you have to make sure that whoever's in your house is not in your house at the time you're doing these things. So one of the things is to have wifey's out of town. You're like, oh, bye, honey. And, he's probably a really, one of those kind-hearted husbands. Some husbands go, what do you have to go visit your sister for? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do for food? He's like, honey, you ought to be able to visit your sister. Take the kids, spend time with her. I mean, your family, you should spend time with her. And she's like, I've got the best husband ever. But that is truly how it works. And so she goes off happily thinking she's got a very supportive husband. And he's back there going, it's my time now. And the house is his. So, yeah, that's the way it works. Whoa, I like that one, Fat as the bomb. Thank you. Okay. All right. I want to go on to the issue about Shannon Gilbert because, oh, Lord. Yes, I've been getting a lot of comments on, well, what about Shannon Gilbert? She was murdered too. All right. Was Shannon Gilbert murdered? Now, Shannon Gilbert was the one who started. I haven't done the story in a long time, so I'm trying to remember. But she advertised, I believe, on Craigslist, and she had a client in the Long Island Beach area, not Gilgo Beach, but in the Long Island Beach. Further down, she had a driver with her, driver/pimp, whatever you want to call them. But a lot of girls who do escort work, if they're intelligent enough to be smart enough to like, hey, I better bring somebody with me. And that is smart because prostitution, and I will use that word because I like it. And I'm tired of people trying to make this a perfectly wonderful job opportunity. It's called sex work. We just do work, but it happens to be sex. No. It's called prostitution. It's been around forever. And it's always been degrading, dangerous, and bad for society. Sorry, that's my little soapbox. And I'm not, it's not like I'm looking at the women saying they are people that I don't like. I just think they have either been drawn into the profession of prostitution through either they ran away from home. They have drug issues. They have mental issues. And this is the way they earn money in this country. In other countries, it may be to feed your children. In this country, mostly it's because you just don't have other good methodologies of making money. But in recent years, there are more and more women who will go on Craigslist or on Pornhub, places like that, and they will earn a living through prostitution. And Pornhub is prostitution as well, just with video, because it makes them money. And you make more money than you do when you get a regular job. And it's a lure, into that profession. But I still think it's a very unhealthy profession. I stand by that. So Shannon was in that unhealthy profession, and she did a smart thing by having a driver. The reason you have a driver is because if you go to somebody's home, you want to be sure the driver takes you there and is sitting outside so you don't get murdered in that home. The driver is there, and the guy knows the driver's outside. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to have my good time, and I'm going to send the girl back out to the driver. And that is smart to do. Outside of working, if you work at a massage parlor, that's a location where men go into, but there's a manager, so women don't usually get murdered in massage parlors. High escort services, where a woman is going to get paid $1,000 for the night, $2,000, and she's going to a high-end hotel through an agency, probably not going to get murdered either. But a woman actually wrote a comment to me that the escorts, in the case of Shannon Gilbert, they get the ID of the guy. I'm like, who the heck gives up your ID? And then they check them to see if they have violent record. I'm like, you can't find that out. That's just nonsense. You're delusional. You cannot. Even a private investigator has trouble finding out the guy's criminal history, depending on what state he's in. You can find out some things if you know his name. In Maryland, I can run his criminal record. That is online. Other states, you can't do it. But you also don't know what he did in other states. He could be clear in Maryland, but in another state, he's got a long, long history, but I can't access that. So I don't know that he isn't some violent predator. I have no clue. And besides which, some don't have any criminal records at all. Did old Rex have a criminal record? Did he have a criminal record of violence? No, he did not. Therefore, you can look up all you want, but hey, that dude's going, they never got me, so I'm going to get you. So that's the way they work it. So that's nonsense. So the better thing is to have a driver, because at least if you have a driver sitting outside the house you're at, that's a smart move. So Shannon Gilbert actually did a smart thing. However, Shannon Gilbert also apparently had a psychotic break. Now, there are people writing me saying, oh my God, she called 911 and she was using code. She wasn't using code. What she said was crazy crap. Okay. And the people there, the guy who had hired her and the driver going, hey, Shannon, they were trying to help the girl. She refused to help. And it was very bizarre. So I know it's a psychotic break. Then she ran off and she went to this other homes knocking on doors, but she wouldn't accept their help. They would try to help her and then she would run away. This is a psychotic break. So she ends up in the marsh. All right. That's where her body is eventually found, like 18 months later. I think I have that right, but I might be wrong. And the day and exact. Anyway, she disappears, and the discovery of her body leads to them searching other areas, and then looking for Shannon helped them find the Gilgo Beach girls, and it was her death actually helped catch Rex Heuermann, if he is the guy that actually committed the crimes. And I say that he is only at this point charged with it. He has not been proven guilty. All right, so. But Shannon Gilbert, she ran off into the marsh, and the police, their police did their autopsy and all that stuff, and they basically came up with, we have no exact cause of death. We believe it was drowning or hypothermia. And people say, well, why would it be hypothermia? It wasn't that cold. No, but if you're hanging around in a marsh at night, you can get hypothermic when you get soaked. And you're maybe hiding in the reeds because you think you're paranoid and everybody's out to get you. Over time, you can become hypothermic. There is no cause of death. So what happens? The parent then hired Michael Baden. All right. So then we get to Michael Baden. All right. And he said, let me find it here. All right. Sorry. Okay. So Gilbert's death certificate listed the cause and manner of death as undetermined, as it should. Now, does that mean she could not have been murdered? She could have, but who did it? It's not like the guy she was seeing was going to stay in the house. He had money, he was staying at home. She ran out of his house. He's like, I'm done. The driver did go look for her. He's a squirrely dude, but then he's a driver for a person who's involved in prostitution. And he doesn't like talking to the police. Who else? She's running into the marsh. All of a sudden, the Long Island serial killer, Rex Heuermann, popped up and decided to strangle her. And not, for what? For what reason? This is not a sexual homicide. It's just a death in the marsh. Could the driver have lost his mind along with her because he chased her down and she was being a jerk? And, I say jerk with the quotes, a psychotic thing. He's going, what the hell is wrong with you? And accidentally killed her? Yeah, I'm okay with that possibility. But that's not the same thing as she's been killed by a serial killer. That's something else. Okay? So what happened is they said they had no proof of cause of death. She'd been lying in there. Got to understand also, when you have a body that's been lying around for 18 months in the water, mind you, a lot of evidence just vanishes and the cause of death vanishes. Everything goes. All right. So then, so it's undetermined. And then an independent autopsy by former New York Chief Medical Examiner Michael Baden concluded, quote, there is no evidence that she died of a natural disease or of a drug overdose or of drowning. Okay, that's true. He's hired by the family. He's saying what is true. There's no evidence. Because there's no evidence doesn't mean it isn't so. There's just, because her body's been in the marsh for 18 months or whatever exact time frame it is, evidence vanishes. All right. Then he says this. There is insufficient evidence. There is insufficient information to determine a definite cause of death. That's what Baden said. Now, everybody's saying it's proof that she was murdered. No, Baden just said, in his own words, insufficient information to determine a definite cause of death. So there is no cause of death. Therefore, there is no manner of death. There is nothing. But, he says, the autopsy findings are consistent with homicidal strangulations. The autopsy findings. I love how he says that. Like the autopsy findings are just there. No. He created the autopsy findings. And you have to understand this. When people say this is so, it's not necessarily so. He's saying the autopsy findings, his autopsy findings, which means it's his opinion, not fact. He says are consistent, not that they're proven to be homicidal strangulation, but they're consistent with. This is all the fancy talk. Biden wrote that nearly all of Gilbert's recovered skeletal remains, nearly all of her skeletal remains appeared normal. What does nearly all even mean? I want to know what nearly all means. 99%, 90%, 80%, 60%. 60% is still nearly all. What does it mean? What's not right? So here's this. This is the kind of language that drives me nuts, because this is where people aren't honest. And when people aren't honest, you don't get a proper picture of things. All right. Nearly all of the skeletal remains appeared normal, but the quotes, the larynx was missing and only the body of the hyoid bone was found. The two greater horns of that neck bone were missing. These structures, the larynx and the hyoid bone, are often fractured during homicidal manual strangulation. Is he correct? Yes. All right. Sometimes when you have a strangulation, that is what happens. So could she have been strangled? Yes. Is it proven? No. First of all, I haven't seen the actual autopsy report. I have not seen the photos. I would like to see the entire pile of information before I say I agree with them or I don't agree with them, because I don't have the information. It's your opinion, Mr. Dr. Baden. Is he a doctor? I'm not sure. Michael Baden. It's your opinion. Your opinion is just like my opinion. Now he has explained it. I'll give him credit on that. So he has said that often, again, the word often, fracture during homicidal manual strangulation. Often. What is the other part of that? Often during manual strangulation, or sometimes what? Now, here's the problem. She was lying in a marsh for 18 months. That's a pretty crappy place to be lying in. Body decomposition goes along pretty fast in those locations. Now, this is Long Island. It's near a beach. And I'm going to say there's these things on the beach called crabs. Now, I admit I haven't done a lot of studies of the animals in that location, but crabs especially come out at night. At least that's what I hear. I don't know. I haven't done a whole bunch of studies on the animal predators of the Long Island, that whole beach area. But it was a beach area, in a marsh area. Animals come there. Birds come there with beaks. Crabs come there. Other animals come and nibble, nibble, nibble. Now, there's two possibilities. One is simply that if she died of, quote, natural causes or hypothermia. Let me explain hypothermia again before people don't understand it. Her clothes are found away from her body. And this is very common in hypothermia and gets people really confused, because what happens is when you become hypothermic, you get actually hot and you start losing your mind because you're, oh my God, I'm so freaking hot. And you start ripping your clothes off. And it's really strange for people. And you start kind of losing it, your mind, and ripping all your clothes off because you just want to be cool. And yet, actually, that's your problem. So you often find a hypothermic person actually naked with their clothes someplace else. And that makes people jump immediately to homicide, rape, and other things. So anyway, so she's lying there in the marsh for an incredibly long period of time. Now, sometimes when you have damage to a particular area, that will encourage critters to come and chomp on that area because you already have damage to that area. This is true. But on the other hand, over 18 months, I don't know, maybe her head was in a position that was useful to crabs. I'm not a crab. I don't know what I would like to chew on, and birds, and now anything else. So 18 months. Now, I have not seen any good investigation of, I would like to know all the animals. If I were hired for this, let's say, I would look at all the animals in the area. What are the predation rates? If you look at the body farm down Tennessee, fabulous. They put bodies in all kinds of different places in order to find out what happens to them. I would like to see, if you put a body in a marsh for 18 months, what happens to it? Do animals in that area come around and munch away, or do they not? I want to know. And if I don't know, I can't exactly say I know what happened. I don't. So Shannon Gilbert, I think 100% had a psychotic break. I 100% believe no one was trying to kill her. She ran into the marsh. And I think she either died of hypothermia and the animal critters got to her. And the only other scenario I can come up with is the driver chased her down and got pissed at her for being a jerk. But hey, she's his money. You know what I mean? So why would he want to knock her off if she's the money and she makes him money? Because every time he takes her someplace, he gets money from her. But hey, could he be a psychopath and get pissed off that she messed up that whole thing and he wasn't going to work for her anymore? Maybe. I don't know. But I don't trust I'm trying to think if it's Dr. Bodden. I think it is Dr. Bodden, but I don't know why. I just sound like, I think he's a doctor of forensic pathology. Anyway, Michael Bodden. I have a small problem with Michael Bodden. And this is something that is an issue for me. Because Michael Bodden does a lot of television work. He does. And when I was studying criminal profiling and forensic pathology, I did study stuff that he wrote. And I knew what he thought. He was the information he put out there for how to analyze crimes was excellent. I was very, very, very impressed with Michael Bodden. And then OJ came along and he was on OJ's team. I'm like, say what? But I let it go. I'm like, okay. Then the one that really did me in was this. It was Phil Spector. When he testified for the defense in Phil Spector's case, that's the music guy who shot the woman who came over to his house. And it said here, in 2007, Bodden testified on his new theory on the death of music producer Phil Spector's victim. He sought to provide an alternative explanation for blood on the victim's jacket. When asked by the prosecutor if he had any conflicts of interest, he replied, "None that I can think of." It was later revealed that his wife was one of Spector's main attorneys. Yeah, okay. He got paid a crap load of money to testify. And I listened to his testimony on the blood spatter pattern, and I was like, what? It was totally against what he had said in his teaching, in his writing, everything that I had ever learned from that guy. I'm like, I know you're not telling the truth. You can't believe this garbage. You have to have been paid enough money to say this stuff, because I can't understand why you would say this. And he did get paid. I can't remember how much it was. It was a lot. We're talking in the tens of thousands of dollars, like 30, 40, 50,000, somewhere in there. Unbelievable. And I was really saddened, because I'm like, my question was, can you be bought? I'm not saying he was bought, but now I wonder. So he does a lot of things for victims, which maybe he's even doing the pro bono. I don't know, but I don't trust his conclusions anymore, because I think he has his own agendas. And that's sad, because, as I've always said, especially for somebody like him, dude, you got enough money to survive, to retire. You don't need to make that much extra money to then present information that's not accurate. And that's why I don't trust the jury system again, because here's Dr. Bodden. The jury has seen Dr. Bodden on show after show after show on TV, and they're like, oh, Dr. Bodden, he's like a god of forensic pathology. And then he shows up in court and he says this stuff in the Phil Spector trial, and the jury, who are they supposed to believe? The prosecution's forensic pathologist, they never heard of that person, or Bodden. Is it Dr. Bodden? I keep wondering if it's Dr. Bodden. I assume it is. I don't know why I can't see it here. Anyway, it's him. It's got to be him. He's got to have the right information. It's Bodden. It's Michael Bodden. We have to believe him. Now, I didn't believe him. If I were on that professional jury, I'd say, you're talking rot, because you're not impressing me because of who you are, even though I did like who you were before you came to this trial, but I know what you're saying is not accurate. But I can't believe a jury would know that. They have no clue. And so, I get these things over and over again. Bodden says this, Bodden says this, Bodden said this, and we know who Bodden is. So clearly she was murdered. And yet the evidence is not there. Could she have been murdered? Possibly, but certainly not by Rex Heuermann, not by the Long Island serial killer, not by any serial killer, not by some sex ring down there. They're all out together. Nonsense. I mean, the doctor, the person who hired her, they don't want a dead girl on their, they don't want to kill her. What's the point? They want to have fun with her and let her go home. They want to hire her back again if she was any good. Why would they kill her? The only people who want to kill prostitutes are serial killers, because they bring them home or take them someplace else and do horrific things to them, and they like torture and murder. Most people who hire a prostitute just want to have sex with them. Maybe some kinky sex, mind you, but they don't want them dead at the end of the day, because then that's not a good thing for them. They get arrested and they have a dead girl in their house, and it's not good. Most of them have no interest in doing any such thing. So unless they're a serial killer, you're not killing prostitutes. Occasionally, I say an occasional person could lose their mind. John could lose her mind, I suppose, or the pimp could lose her mind because she talked back to him, or the driver who was / pimp, whatever. But then it would be a completely different thing. It's not a serial killer. So that's my statement on that. Let me check your comments. All right. Oh, okay. Let's see. Bondage lessons, you get it all here. Yeah. Okay. Safe. Okay, we already did the safe paying on escorts, and that is true. Let's go down further. Dating Pat, you need a police check first. You know, there's ways to meet people and know who they are and know how safe they are. That don't require total police checks, although I'll do them all the time. But again, it's not rushing into relationships and not meeting strangers in strange places. Stay away from that. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Hello, Bluebell Rose. All right. I saw another YouTube channel that was interviewing young women in Japan who were escorts or filming porn. They were gorgeous, from good families, and sometimes college educated. Why? This is a question I have. It is phenomenal. It just blows my mind. You're correct. They are gorgeous. You would think that girls who do this kind of thing, they're willing to have sex with 5 guys in many, many ways. And I can't explain those ways here, but in many, many ways that are damaging to them and degrading. And they have their faces at the camera constantly. And mommy and daddy can see them, and their children can see them, and their sisters and brothers and everybody else can see them. I'm like, you would think these are girls who like really could have nothing going for them at all. You know what I mean? Like total dogs. No, you're right. Some incredibly beautiful women. And you think they could be models, which again is another industry fraught with a few other issues. But hey, they're very attractive. And you wonder, what the heck are you doing in this industry? And some go for the money. And it does boggle my mind too, because I think, there's, let's face it, depending on what industry, how you're involved in the world of prostitution, you can make very poor money on the streets just paying for, survival and drugs or whatever you need to get through the day. And then there are others who do work in escort services who make a pretty good amount of money, and they're not in porn. Maybe nobody knows they did it, so they make a lot of money and they can stash that money away and, have that for, they can have a few $100,000, $500,000 stashed away, have a beautiful home. But women in porn, they're seen by everyone who ever goes to porn. And I'm not saying everyone, but, their faces are out there. I don't know how much they're making in porn to make it worth it. I find that shocking, absolutely shocking. Because when I went to Hollywood when I was 19, I got offered two jobs. One was for Penthouse. I think I was offered $10,000 for Penthouse layout, and I turned it down because I'm like, back in those days there wasn't internet, but that was a magazine that I knew would be around forever. I'm like, I can't have my parents overseas. What if I have children and one day they find out mom was in a penthouse, Oh my God. And it wasn't as nice as Playboy, you know what I mean? It wasn't quite as bad as Hustler, but hey, I turned it down because I said $10,000 for me was a lot of money at the time. But I'm like, I could take that $10,000 in a year from now. That money will be gone. It might be because I bought a used car. It might be because I put payment down on something, pay for some rent, but it'll be gone. But that magazine will be forever. And then I got offered another job to do a film called The Other Charlie's Angels. They weren't so angelic. And it was softcore porn at the time. I turned that down too, even though I missed out on a trip to Paris because I thought it was permanent. I was like, I was trying to get into modeling and Hollywood. And I'm like, but these things, first of all, I didn't want to do them because they were disgusting to me. But on the other hand, also, I didn't want that impermanent stuff. So I turned it down. I also never got anywhere in Hollywood, and I left and went back to college. But I don't understand why people are doing the stuff that's out there today, because it's so accessible to people. And so these beautiful girls who, to me, you don't have to be beautiful out of a decent life. Beauty isn't everything. But when these girls have it, you would think they could find a better way to use it than what they do. And it is mind-boggling. It's so sad. Bluebell Rose said, why is porn or escort in the first place their minds go to make money? I don't know that it does, but once somebody introduces it to them, I guess the difference between making $15 an hour or 10 at the, depending when people started with minimum wage, compared to making $100 an hour, I'm going to say people like money. And the girls who get into this a lot of times, they do get a lot of money, and then they can buy fancy clothes and run around and go to clubs. And I have no, it's a thing, but it's not a good thing. It's a terrible thing. It just is. Okay. Molly says, I think Dr. Bodden did an autopsy for the family and said possible strangulation. That's what I said. It's possible, but it's not. And even if you just thought, that's the problem. It's possible is not the same thing. That's it. Dr. Bodden did do it for the family. He's hired. And unfortunately, he's been a hired gun before. And that's problematic for me. And if you're going to analyze something, you don't want to be a hired gun. You want, well, which everybody is. They're hired gun for the prosecution, hired gun for the defense, because they get paid for one or the other. And I've had a few experiences with the defense wanting to hire me to be a hired gun, and then I told them their client was guilty, and they got rid of me really quickly, But because I couldn't do it, I was like, oh, you guys should get murder one, and they were like, well, can you make up some story about? No, I'm not making up a story. It's murder one. So, yeah. So it's unfortunate. Linda says, I honestly don't believe even a killer would hide out in a marsh. No, not in the middle of the night. He's not hiding out in any marsh. It's ridiculous. So the only person that, to me, makes the smallest bit of sense would be the driver, because he's trying to find her because she ran off, and he's supposed to give her a ride back. Is it possible that they got into an argument and he grabbed her by the throat? Maybe. He was squirrely. The dude's squirrely. So look at him. That's fine, but it's not serial killer. And there still is, at this point, not exact proof that she was murdered. But if you want to look over at him, fine. But stop saying that's a serial killer. It's not. It's just not. Michaela says, I don't think she was murdered. I just think it's coincidental. She triggered the search. Yes, whether she was or wasn't murdered, she did trigger the search, which in a way was she contributed to all the other victims' families by inspiring the search, which then led to an arrest in the Gilgo Beach killings. So let's see. Well, he did lose, didn't he? I can't remember. Yeah. Well, you pay for it. Sometimes it doesn't work, but Linda says, my experiences with expert witnesses is a cloudy one. Without being insensitive, Michael Bodden, I guess, and Shannon Gilbert have a lot in common. There is that. I know what you're trying to say. Yeah. I won't go further because I think I might get demonetized. But I totally agree. You can blank for one thing and you can blank for the other. Correct. I didn't do it, Michaela. I never did it. So you can't find a magazine with me in it. You can't. So you can. I'll give you the year so you can search and waste your time. I was in Hollywood when I was 19. Wait a minute. Let me figure it out. 1973, I believe. 1972, 1973. I got the offer. I turned the offer down, so you can go to the old bookshop and search away, but you won't find me. You won't find me. All right, that's my thoughts on that particular issue. Now, I want to talk about. Okay, I've been asked over and over about this woman, and yeah, her. Let me pull up. Okay, that was the boy. The interesting thing was the boyfriend. The boyfriend's on the left. She's very attractive and he's very cute. And they look like a really nice couple. And you're like, hey, everything's good, Apparently not. So anyway, her name is Carlee Russell. And the boyfriend believed she was kidnapped. And he's like, oh, now she's safe, but she was kidnapped. He fell for it. And people asked me to do ongoing stuff on this, and I refused to do it because I saw this happening on a lot of the grifter channels. It was 3 or 4 hours of just, let's talk about this missing woman. Let's examine because we're all trying to solve the case. No, you're not. The police already knew what happened. Okay. The police already knew. It was pretty dang obvious. She went missing for like 48 hours, and she had done searches before she went missing on the movie Taken, and on would she be charged if there was a search? And also, I think the what else did she search? I think it was let me go to the other story, because that's where. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on a second. Oh yeah. So she researched them before she went missing. Remember, I always talk about those Google searches that will do you in. She researched the movies Taken, and that's the Liam Neeson movie where the girl gets kidnapped, and whether she was too old for an Amber Alert. Yes, you are. And then she appeared. Yeah, she disappeared. She appeared 2 days later, claiming she was trying to save a toddler who was walking down the side of a road. So she's driving along, and there's all kinds of video on this. She's driving along. She's supposed to see a toddler in some diapers on the side of the road. So she pulls over. And of course, if you're driving as fast as she is, somehow where she would pull over and where the toddler would be like really far apart. Anyway, and then she made a phone call and said, oh, and she supposedly is on the phone. She's saying to the kid, are you okay? No, the kid, what kind of stupid question would that be? Why would you ask a toddler on the side of the road if they're okay? First of all, they're walking, so they are functional. But secondly, clearly a toddler on the side of the road is not okay. And what your first concern would be that the little creature would run into the road. So I don't think saying, are you okay, makes any sense. The first thing you do is say, oh my gosh, and you grab the child up and you take it to your car. But no. Supposedly she's having a chit chat with the child, and all of a sudden there's a scream, and somebody grabs her off the road because they used the child to lure her. Because, of course, abductors would like to dump a child of their own, because where else are you going to get one, on the side of a dark road, a highway, and then wait there for some unsuspecting person to pull over to save the child. And, of course, you have to get lucky that's going to be what you want pulling over. It could be a couple pulling over. It could be the police pulling over. It could be me pulling over. They're like, oh, dang it. I don't want I'm almost 68-year-old woman. I don't want her. Stupidest thing ever. And she supposedly went and bought snacks before she disappeared, and the snacks weren't in the car, but her phone was in the car. The whole thing was ridiculous. So right away, everybody says, is this Sherry Papini all over again? Yes, but stupider. Okay? Stupider. Sherry Papini, at least, she was gone a long time, and there wasn't a lot of evidence, although right up front, I thought she was faking it. I mean, I said that right up front. I got attacked by a whole bunch of people because they're like, how can you say this? She could have been kidnapped in the sex trade. I'm like, no, not happening. And this woman, the whole story was so ridiculous. And then she shows up 48 hours later. She walks, into the house or whatever. And the whole thing was ridiculous. And one of the things that irritated me most was that her parents showed up on the Today Show. The Today Show, which used to be had some quality, is now a bunch of vultures. I used to do a Today Show a lot, but now it's like, when they hear something, they snatch it up. They put these parents on there. And the parents, of course, defended her, mommy especially, going, oh, she would never lie to us. I'm sure she was kidnapped. And daddy's going, looking a little shaky there and going, yeah. Okay. First of all, leave it in the police hands. They didn't need to be on your show. They didn't need to be any place. The police were actually dealing with this perfectly fine. It did not need to be fodder. It really didn't. With Sherry Papini, it was a bit of a different issue because it went on for so long and became a huge issue as where was she? This one was already back home after 48 hours. Okay? Leave it to the police. It doesn't need to be all over the internet. Same with the little boy the boy who disappeared for about 8 years, and his mommy was actually keeping him there. A commentary here and there, I don't mind, but this constant, we're gonna figure out what happened to her and why she did it. Just okay. What is she? Does she suffer from Munchausen syndrome? Well, it certainly appears that way. And again, let me say, Munchausen syndrome was a behavior of psychopathy. In other words, it's not an organic thing. It's a way to get attention. It's a way that a psychopath gets attention. Do I know that she's a psychopath? No, I do not. Can I psychoanalyze her? No. But the desire to have that kind of attention is the kind of I see it quite often with women. There's another woman, I think it was in Wisconsin. She went missing. She ended up crawling out of some weedy area. I remember that. I can't remember who she was now. I remember that one. It happened. I forgot when that one happened. But it's mostly women who do the pretend I was abducted thing. And that's the way women sometimes get attention. I was raped. I was abducted. And so the question really comes down here. Here's where I have the issue. And the reason I want to talk about it. I want her charged. And this is the problem, is they don't charge them. I don't want a misdemeanor. I want it to be a felony. I want her in prison, not in jail. I don't want her on home detention, all kinds of bullcrap, community service, whatever. I want her charged. If you're willing to do that, take up resources, terrify everybody, and blame other people, you ought to go to prison. I'm sick of it. I am absolutely sick of it. That's where I want her to be. I want her to be in prison. And I'm going to guess she's going to get a slap on the wrist like they usually do. And you know why? Because it's women. Now, let me tell you something. Let me read you this one. This is actually, I have no photo. There's no photo out on this. This happened in my county. And hold on a second. All right. This happened in my county. A former CO who fell for inmate, correctional officer, who fell for inmate, admits to smuggling contraband in Prince George's County. Now, this happened just down the road from me. I'm in Prince George's County, also known as PG County. A bad romance led to trouble with the law for a former corrections officer. A bad romance? No, you can't have romance. You can't have sex with people that you're correct. You're in a jail. You cannot have sex with them. That's not a bad romance. That's breaking the law. All right, a bad romance led to trouble with the law for a former corrections officer in Maryland who conspired with her inmate boyfriend. You cannot have inmate boyfriends. All right, it's not. You cannot do it. So they're trying again to say that she's like, I couldn't help myself. I fell in love. To smuggle drugs into Prince George's County facility. Okay, you fall in love is one thing. You're smuggling drugs for your boyfriend. Now you're the inmates. Now you're just a criminal. Okay, all right. Waldorf residents, and I will put her name out here. Danielle Dominique Smith. You're a criminal. 34 years old, admitted she found herself. She didn't find herself. She went and got that. You know what I mean? And an intimate and sexual relationship with a prisoner. You don't find yourself. At the Prince George's County Department of Corrections detention facility, with whom she worked to bring illegal materials into the building, according to a guilty plea. This is unbelievable. I mean, okay. Between November, get the dates on this. Between November 2009 and April 2022, 13 years. While working as a correctional officer, she developed a romantic relationship, which was discovered. Okay, she conspired with a boyfriend. 13 years with her boyfriend and others to distribute Suboxone and synthetic marijuana, which is K2, which were concealed on special diet food trays that were designed for him specifically. Once the inmate received the food tray, he would distribute the drugs to others in the facility, who then had friends or family send Smith money for the controlled substances. The woman is a drug dealer. It's not about love. It's not about romance. Woman, 13 years of drug dealing, and you were hired to be a correctional officer, to be part of the law enforcement system, and you did this. You are worse than a drug dealer. Worse. Smith and the inmate discussed the distribution of drugs on recorded jail calls. She's not even bright. Referring to the controlled substances as food products in an effort to conceal the nature of the conversation until they were busted by investigators. In September 2021, there was a search of Smith's boyfriend's cell, which led to the recovery of white paper with K2, and another inmate was later busted with a bottle containing 395 strips that were found to contain Suboxone. Now, here's where I get pissed off. You know, I get pissed off more at the justice system than I do at the criminal. Why? Because the criminal's a little psychopath. They are what they are. But we, who are not supposed to be psychopaths, and are supposed to make our area safe and decent, and we're supposed to follow the law. If we can't do anything right, then we're fools, idiots, or we're invested in criminal behavior. I don't know what it is. Listen to this. As part of her plea, Smith took a pre-approved leave of work in February last year. Though a month later, on the day she was scheduled to return to the job, she was recorded talking to her boyfriend on the jail cell about the meals. Okay. She was suspended that day. Smith pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute a controlled substance. Under the plea agreement, Smith is scheduled to be sentenced. I want you to guess. 13 years. She's a drug dealer in prison. Making money. They're sending her the money, so she's making money. She's a drug dealer in prison. She's breaking the law in a place where she's supposed to be upholding the law. What do you think her sentence was? What's your guess? I want to see what your guess on this is. Michaela, correctional officers need love too. Pat's Soapbox should be the name of this pro. Yeah, you might be right. Oh my goodness, that might be right. What do you think? What do you think she got? Eight what? What is that? 2 years. Emily says 2 years, and we got CJ says 10 years. Lauren says 8 months. And Mary says probation. Kelly Evans says 6 months probation. Let's see. Yep, Kelly wins. Kelly wins. Under the plea agreement, Smith is scheduled to be sentenced to 6 months of home detention. Home detention. We got 2 years of home detention during COVID. We didn't even commit a crime, And look at what's her face. I forgot her name. The fake art Harris, whatever her name was. I've forgotten it. She keeps changing her name. So she's on home detention. She's giving dinner parties. She's making money. She's making a fortune. I never thought of prison as a dating opportunity. Well, some of those dudes are really handsome. Not only was it a dating opportunity, she apparently wasn't satisfied with her correctional office income, so she added to that income by being a drug dealer. Drug dealer. And you thought 10 years was lenient. Yeah, 6 months home detention. Well, hell. If we give out sentences like that, we deserve everything we get. If we're not going to punish people in a proper way, yeah, okay. That is my soapbox. One of my soapboxes. Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was when we're talking about the woman who went missing. Here's a really interesting case. Really, really strange case. Oh wait, before I go to that, let me mention Tupac. Okay, so Tupac, they just got a search warrant, and they went after supposedly the guy that was either connected to the guy in the car or whatever. It's been 25 years. They got a search warrant. They might have the guy who finally they'll figure out who killed him. People are saying, "What do you think, Pat? What do you think?" I really don't care. I really don't. I'll tell you why I don't care. Play with fire, die. You know what I mean? That's the way I think. Tupac was involved with a lot of things he shouldn't have been involved with, a lot of behavior he shouldn't have been involved with. One of the rapper issues of being involved with the gangs and all that stuff. Did the Crips get him? Maybe so. But so what? Did he deserve it? Maybe so. Did I like his rapping? Yes, I did. And just because I like what you do as far as your some of your skills doesn't mean I just say, oh, well, I should be bent out of shape when you get yourself killed off because you were involved in illegal crap. And in my opinion, Tupac Shakur was involved in stuff he shouldn't have been involved with. That's what got him killed. Should they solve the case? Sure. Should they put the guy away who did it? Sure. I don't have an issue with that. Of course. Even a person who is involved in something and gets themselves killed should, you shouldn't ignore the killer of that person. So yeah, I'm okay with that. A lot of rappers are getting killed. Should we go after their killers? Yes, we should. But I'm just not all bent out of shape about it. Okay, I don't want to spend hours and hundreds of hours trying to figure out who killed them, because you hooked up with gangs. Oh well, maybe that's mean, but anyway, I'd rather talk about this woman. This is a fascinating case, and I'm not saying I have a good answer for this one, but I think it's interesting because there's not a lot of information about what actually happened to this woman. Now, her name is Monica de Leon Barba. Okay, Monica de Leon Barba. That's one picture of her. There's another picture of her, and this is a picture of her. She's walking her dog, and I think it was Jalisco. Okay, yeah, Jalisco. She was walking her dog in Jalisco, and these cars pulled up and kidnapped her, abducted her, kept her for 8 months, and now she finally, after 8 months, she was released. And she's back home with her dog. There she is with the dog. All right, let me read you some of this. The FBI, San Francisco, releases videos depicting the kidnapping of Monica de Leon Barba. They are looking for tips to recover her. Well, they have recovered her. I don't know how she got recovered. She supposedly was released. Why? Well, first of all, who had her? And there's no information about who had her. Of course, people are thinking cartels, and maybe they're thinking they're kidnapping an American, to get, ransom money off of. I don't know what went on between them and the family, but she was released. But it was kind of an interesting one for this reason. She was a U.S. citizen. She was kidnapped in Tepoztlán, Jalisco, in Mexico, while walking home from work with her dog on November 29th, 2022. She's 29 years old. Now, just to be honest, you see, people never want you to be honest because they're always like, well, that's just mean. All right. I saw some photos of her earlier on in her life, and she was thin and gorgeous and had long, pretty curly hair, and she was thin. And by the time she got to Jalisco, she had a dramatic different look, kind of a tougher look, shall we say. Short hair. She's heavy. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this. I'm just saying she looks different. And she's 29 and looks more like this than like this. So it didn't look like she was being kidnapped for sexual purposes, is what my point is. And that's just a fact. Okay, as I always point out, if you don't want to get kidnapped by a serial killer, be obese. Obese women don't get kidnapped by serial killers. And older women tend not to get kidnapped by serial killers, because we're not exciting to them. But so she would not be, in my opinion, kidnapped into any sex ring or kidnapped for sexual purposes. And she was kept for 8 months. So one would think it was for money. And the question was, did they ever get any money from the family or not? 8 months is a pretty long time. And she's, by the way, she is, she went to Mexico. When they say American citizen, or she speaks fluent Spanish. Family is, I think they were originally from Mexico. She had a cousin down in Jalisco. She went to stay with her cousin, doing photography and other stuff. And she's, and she wasn't in a tourist area too, which is interesting. She was walking down a local street in a local neighborhood. Why? And why would anybody think to kidnap her? She doesn't even look out of place for the neighborhood. Okay. Because she speaks fluent Spanish. She just, okay, so maybe she's got an American, citizenship, but would they know she's got money? Now, I did look back in her Facebook pages, and she traveled a lot in quite nice places. So I'm thinking the family did have money. Okay, that's my opinion from looking at her pages. But supposedly there were 5 suspects who kidnapped her, at least 5 suspects. The dog, it says here, the kidnappers came up with their vehicles. Monica was confronted by several suspects and forced into a gray Volkswagen Jetta. The suspects then drove away in 3 different vehicles, including the Jetta. Monica's dog is shown in the video loose on the street. Her dog was later safely located and recovered by a family member. Okay, because she has family down there. And what's interesting is that at the FBI was involved, which was interesting. But this wasn't big news. And an American being kidnapped in Mexico is usually huge news. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, wow, don't go to Mexico because you're going to get kidnapped off the streets, which most of the time is nonsense because I've spent a lot of time in Mexico. I love Mexico. And you're not just walking down the street in Mexico getting kidnapped by the cartels. I mean, that's generally speaking not what's happening. People have, and once in a great while, you might hear somebody got kidnapped for some reason, maybe in a drug deal or whatever, and maybe because they were held for ransom. It doesn't happen that much with Americans who are not connected to Mexico to begin with. So what was interesting is just that we have very little information about why she was kidnapped. And I don't know why they're withholding that information. I find that fascinating. And I don't have an answer for this, but sometimes when you see these different cases come out, you can't go further than you can go when you're talking about profiling from the outside or understanding what happened. Sometimes you just got to say, I don't know. It's weird to me. They must know something more, which is why they've, for example, kept a lot of things under wraps and so on and so forth. I'm glad she was recovered. I mean, she was freed for whatever reasons. And somebody said, well, they fed her for 8 months, which is true. She's not scrawny, so she obviously got good food. She's home with her dog. I don't know what she said. They've not said anything about what she's told her family about what happened to her. And why would the kidnappers release her? I mean, it's much better to have a dead person than a, usually what happens is even if they ask for ransom, then they kill you anyway because they don't want you to rat them out. But I'll be fascinated to hear if anything comes out of this one. I just think it's an interesting case that, kind of fascinating. Let's see what else I want to talk about here. Let's see, what's my next thing? Benny sent this over to me. And he said that he had seen this Peter Hyatt, who is a statement analyst. He said, hi, Pat, check out this video. He said, it's interesting that Peter Hyatt describes a phenomenon that you also discussed a while ago. When someone disagrees with you, with your opinion on one case, but was a follower before. In other words, they for like a year or two, they're like, oh my God, Pat Bryant is my favorite profiler ever. You're always right. And then you say something they don't agree with on one case that they think the person's innocent. Suddenly, you're a total fraud. I hate you. You're a scumbag. So he's talking about this issue. Peter is always telling his reason. And this is there are two things in this video. I'm going to link the video below. One thing is Peter's talking about this phenomenon, where people go crazy on you and they suddenly hate you for disagreeing with what they think is in their mind what happened. And he has been outspoken on the Madeleine McCann case and the John Benet Ramsey case. We both agree on those cases, that there wasn't an abductor in either case. Now, do I always agree with Peter Hyatt? No. I have a couple issues here and there that I'm like, oh, I don't agree with that. I'm sure he does the same for me, mind you. I think when in the, I think in one case, it was, dang it, I was blank on his name for some reason. But anyway, the concept was about a door. A door, it could be a sexual thing, and when the person talks about doors, it's sexual. And I always think sometimes a door is just a door, But those kind of things but he did what Benny said. Peter is always telling his reasons for his conclusions when he does his analysis, the same as you do. I love it. And so, although in this one little thing, I disagreed with him. I had an opinion. He had an opinion. He explained his opinion. I explained my opinion. And I think that's great because we both learn from that. One day I might say, hey, I've changed my opinion, Peter. I think you're right. That door means more than I thought it did. Or vice versa. But he always explains, and I appreciate that. And I think it's great. But a lot of people, even if you explain, can't handle your conclusion. For example, Ken Maines usually explains what he's saying. Now, I admit I have a problem with Ken Maines' bromance with the ex-death row killer. He's not an ex-killer. He's an ex-death row. They're now have been main population. He's still like, oh, this is the greatest guy ever. I don't know what kind of bromance. I don't know why he's into this dude. And it pissed me off because I don't like killers who are psychopaths, in my opinion, being presented as profilers to the audience and giving any kind of credibility when I know the guy is a manipulative piece of crap. But for some reason, Ken has a bromance with him. But pushing that aside and my feelings on that, I do like that when he does his videos, he does usually explain why he comes to his conclusions. And I think that's good. So we learn something from that. Even if we disagree with it, we learn something from that. And I think that's grand. So this is a cool little video. And I thought this was kind of funny. I looked at the comments and one comment was this: Peter and Pat Brown are so good because they look at the actual facts and interpret people's words and behaviors. They're not afraid of being questioned, and the truth never, whatever, liars, whatever, nonsense of those ill-informed, emotionally invested in cases that can't see beyond their own emotional investment. And so that's really cool. And then I thought this one was fun. I came here because I highly respect Pat Brown and she respects Peter Hyatt. And I do. And so I'm glad I brought somebody over to Peter Hyatt. And I think that's cool. But here's another little problem I saw in the comments as I was going along. So this is all really great stuff. And then I saw this. Peter, great to hear from you. What do you think about profiler Pat Brown's thoughts that the ransom note in the John Bonet case was written with direct links to language in a boy's comic that was well known at the time, maybe suggesting the boy wrote it? Okay, you got to be really careful with comments. I did in my video talk about a book, Choose Your Own Adventure book. And at the time this was going on, I had this book on my own shelf because my own 9-year-old son, so we're reading these things. And I'm looking at this and the language was so similar to the ransom note. I thought it was interesting. And when I got the ransom note and actually put it on this particular, at that point in time, the font in those books actually matched up with the font in the ransom note, as if somebody might have laid it over and traced it. So I had written an email to John Ramsey about this saying, hey, I noticed this. And he basically blew me off. I get why you blow people off. Usually if they're not like a detective or a criminal profile, you do. But he was just, considering I was a criminal profile, I thought it was kind of interesting. And I'm thinking, does this mean it has some meaning? Because you didn't want to consider it. Usually parents who've lost a child will consider almost everything, even if it's stupid. And here I actually was a profiler saying this could come from, but of course, chances are that if somebody used that book to get an idea, along with there's people suggesting all the movies that were out at the time, which also seem like they're part of this ransom note. But if they use this book as part of the ransom note as an idea, and then used it possibly to trace so they could, not have their handwriting, be seen as well, it would probably be somebody in the house. And that would be why it blew me off. So I did a video on that. And a lot of people are saying, well, you said that Burke wrote the ransom note because of this book. And I'm like, I honestly haven't been back to look at that video because it's always hard to go through it and try to figure out where it was that they're getting this idea from. I never said Burke wrote the ransom note, and I never thought he wrote the ransom note. I just said he had a book. That book of his age was in the house. And sometimes you read to your kid or you know these books. I knew that book. And so was it just something a parent would be aware of, the book and the style of the book, and find it useful? So I'm not quite sure where this idea came up that I said Burke wrote the note. But if you look here, the person said two things: a boy's comic, and Burke wrote it. Now I neither said. First of all, it's not a comic. It's a Choose Your Own Adventure story is where you read and then they say, which way are you going to go? Do you pick A or B? And if you pick A, you go to page 30. And if you pick B, you go to page 40. And then your adventure changes depending on which choice you make. And then some days you make a really bad choice and then you're dead, that kind of thing. Fun little books. But I never said it was a comic and I never said Burke wrote it. So when you read comments, and they're saying, hey, what do you think about Pat Brown saying this? Don't believe that's actually what I said. Unless you can go back to the original link. And I often say to people, when they say that to me, I say, can you please give me the link? Because I don't know if I don't know if you're accurate. You may be accurate, but I just don't know it. I can't take your word for it. Can you please give me a link so I can go look at it myself? So I can see if that person said that or the police said that. Like, for example, I've been having trouble with a Rex Heuermann thing. That, remember the belt that was supposedly found at the scene of one of the crimes. Now it had HW on it. Now people told me, well, it clearly was his because it was wrapped around. It was used in binding the legs, and I'm like, where did you get that? I don't know. Did I just miss that? Because I thought it was just found at the scene and wasn't proven to be the killer's belt. It was just at the scene. I never heard it was tied up to anybody's legs. Now, could I have missed some information coming from law enforcement? Possibly. But I asked for links and no one I haven't gotten any links. So again, if you're here now and you know of a link that says that belt was actually tied around somebody's legs, give me the link. And I want it to be from law enforcement, because I don't want to hear some internet gossip crap that says, oh, it was around his legs, because that's meaningless. But I want a link to something worthwhile and believable. So it's, just be careful when you look at comments. You could end up finding out that that's true. And I may find out that the belt really was around somebody's legs, but I've not seen the link yet. I'm waiting to see if anybody gives me one. I don't have a problem with it being that way, but I thought originally that was just in the area. And so I had said, well, it's hard to say whether it's just something that was dropped there for some other reason, had nothing to do with the crime, or whether it did belong to the killer. I said, I could go, I don't know which way it is. But if the belt is actually binding somebody's ankles together, I'm going to say that's the killer. And then it's very meaningful. And somebody said his grandfather was HW, maybe so, and it would be great information and one great piece of evidence to take to court. I hope it's true, but I just don't know that it is. So, I'm going to comments. That's a good question. May says about the belt. Rex's grandfather's name was William Heuermann, so it could be his. It indeed could. And I say it would be a great piece of evidence. I just want to know how it was connected, literally. Literally, I want to know. You can't handle the truth. People don't want any evidence that conflicts with what they believe. This is true. And, the weird thing to me is the amount of the investment one has in a person you don't even know. I understand why, for example, Shannon Gilbert's family would be upset if I said, I don't know that I don't have proof that she was murdered. They can be upset because that's their loved one. All right. But I always find it amazing when people who've never met Shannon Gilbert are obsessed and get really angry at a profiler or a detective who says, we don't have proof of that. Oh, how dare you? Blah, blah, blah. Don't you know? Why are you so invested? It's not somebody you even know. It's not. So you can be interested, but if you're that emotional about somebody you don't know, it's a little concerning. May says, I first heard it was in the vicinity, not used in the crime. I heard it was in the vicinity. I don't know how close to the body or if it was even under the body, but there was no proof at that point. At least I heard that it was connected to the crime. It could be, very well could be. But, it's like a park. When one of the greatest places to dump a body is in a park with a whole bunch of garbage on the ground. And then people go, well, did you get evidence from the scene? You're like, good Lord. Okay, well, I found 10 beer bottles, 20 condoms, cigarette butts every place. What am I, how do we know what's connected to the actual victim? We don't. So that's a good place to dump a body. And would there be a belt out in this location? I don't know. I guess it could happen. I don't know why it would be there. So would I look at it as possible evidence? Absolutely. I wouldn't discount it because, my God, if it's actually Heuermann's father's belt, that's great. That's evidence. That'll be fantastic. But I'm not going to jump to that conclusion if it's not actually tied around the legs of the person. Heard on the news, Rex jumped out on, yes, he supposedly. I don't know if that's why they arrested him. They had that didn't probably help his case any. But I think there was a lot of other stuff. I think all put together. They were doing a lot of. They had the cell phone information and witness information and hair. DNA was what really did them in. Karen says, hi, Karen. All people do these days is reduce what someone says to something simple. We used to call it jumping to conclusions and making trouble. I like it. I like it. Yeah. An inability to stop and think and consider, does this have value? And, and again, even if we disagree with somebody on certain things, unless to me it's unethical. I have a problem with something that's not ethical, but somebody just comes up to a different conclusion than me, I don't have to be hating on them. You know what I mean? So, Linda says, people don't listen with their ears. They're too busy figuring out what to say next. Drives me batty. It's just on the internet. You think they have more time because you have to actually type. So, okay, let's see what else I want to talk about. Somebody asked me, okay, what time do we have here? Okay, I got a little more time. Okay. Somebody asked me about this kid who disappeared in France. And here is one of these cases where, again, will I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what happened to him? No. Why? Because I don't have enough information. Can't do much with it. It's a little teeny boy who's staying at his grandparents' house in, let's see, where is it? Let me find it. Okay, little cute little guy. His name is, he's 2 years old, and his name is Emile. I can't pronounce the last name. Solel. He went missing at his grandparents' house in Ligonnes, in some place called something I probably can't pronounce either. Alpes de Haute Provence. That was so embarrassing. Now, mind you, if I were doing a documentary, I'd be studying the pronunciation. But this is YouTube. So a huge search, and they did have a massive search. Here's some of they're just out there with hundreds of the police and volunteers, and they finally called it off. They have not found him. And they think he might have been run over by a combine because they have these in the area. And it's pretty horrific if that were so. But they say that, they run over animals all the time, and he's a little child. Or did he get attacked by a wolf or whatever? And then, of course, people think that he could have been kidnapped. But there's not very many people in the town. They haven't come up with anybody who would have kidnapped him, or I don't think they came up with the grandparents harming him at this point. So they've gone through all houses in the town, through all the bushes. They've used dogs. They haven't just come up with nothing. They've considered all possibilities, whether he was murdered, kidnapped, or involved in an accident, and they've not ruled anything out, but they haven't come up with anything either. They called off the search. So they did find some blood on the front of a car and sent that in for scientific analysis. Nothing's come of it yet. Don't even know if that's human blood. All right. Initially, police believed he may have walked away from his grandparents' house while the family was getting ready to go out. He was a good walker and always chasing butterflies, and so on and so forth. So 2 people reportedly saw the little boy leaving the house, but then lost trace of him. So do I know? I have no clue. I absolutely have no clue whatsoever, because this is a police case, and there's not enough information here to speculate very, very much, except the poor little child is missing. And at that point, you either think the grandparents did something to him and got rid of him, or he was abducted and something bad happened to him, or he walked away and something happened to him with a combine. And until they have enough evidence, we don't really know. We don't. And so on that note, let's talk about another case that's kind of interesting in that evidence. I was asked to look at this one. This guy is coming to trial. The man there is coming to trial in September. I think he's been in custody for 2 years. Let me find him. Let me find the story. Hold on a second. Where is it? Hold on. Where'd it go? He went away. Hold on a second. What the heck? I may have to skip that one until next week because I've lost the article. What what was in, I'd like at least like to know his name, and for some reason the article vanished on me. So unless it's in another location, let me look. It's the wrong location. Okay, her name is Maya Millette. She's married. That was her husband, and there's 3 children. They're both, I think, from Hawaii, but they're living in Chula Vista in California, in San Diego County. And apparently, she was having an affair, and he found out about it, and he was already having issues with the marriage, had issues, and then she vanished. The evidence they have on him is that he had weapons, and one of the neighbor heard these gunshots, like 9 shots. It's on a video, but they can't quite tell if it's really gunshots. But it's about the time that she might have disappeared, because right after that, he backed his vehicle into the garage, like the trunk area, so you could put her in there. She said she was in a room, and she was hiding out in there. And then when people came and they looked in the room, and she wasn't there. And she's missing and never been found. Her body has never been located. And nobody has really, the evidence isn't that she ran away. But here's the interesting part to me. Do I think that probably she was killed by her husband? Well, the evidence leans that way. A lot of circumstantial evidence. Well, here's what's fascinating to me. They have not come up with, as far as I can see, any physical evidence at all. Now, if you shoot somebody with a gun, if those are really the sounds of a gun going bang, 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 where's the blood? And they found some blood in the bathroom. It turned out not to be hers. So it's like, I don't know whose blood that was. Maybe a kid had a nosebleed. But there's no, as far as I can see, any physical evidence in the house. So will a jury convict him based on, they got no body, and they have no physical evidence in the house? To me, that's a problem. If you don't have a body, at least you want a blood spatter scene in the bedroom, and then you can say, well, there's no way this blood got here. And especially if it's, if you have a couple drops of blood, you can say, oh, she had a nosebleed, or she cut her finger or something. If you've got a third of her body blood in that room, you can pretty much assume she was murdered. But there's nothing as far as I can see. And so her body's not been found, and there's no evidence there. I think that's a very hard case to go to court and say, well, they were fighting. Yes. He knew she was having an affair. Yes. Things were said, things were said back and forth, but is that enough to convict? And I think it's going to be interesting to see what comes up in September. When that comes along, we'll have to see whether they actually have any evidence. And here, speaking of evidence, now we have the opposite here. Somebody asked me to look at this guy too. This happened in France. I don't even want to try to pronounce his name except to call him Xaveier. He had this dude. He, on the other hand, left a huge amount of evidence behind when he annihilated his family. And he, let me see if I can find it. Okay, that's the last known photo of him, by the way. Where did this one go? Where did it go? That's what happens when you have so many of these boxes open for so many cases, then you lose track of everything. Where'd he go? Where are you, buddy? Okay, I'm going to go back to my other location. Maybe that's where he's at. All right. Is this it? No. Please have some patience trying to find where he went to. Okay, now I'm going to have to go find his name. Xaveier, Pierre. Okay, I got to reload that one in there to find him. What's interesting about him, which is why I thought I wanted to bring it up. Xaveier, Pierre. Oh yeah, there he is. Okay, this guy, he murdered his entire family in over not one day, but at least 2 days, if not 3 days. He murdered 5 members of his family. And then he vanished, and they've never found him. His wife, he killed his wife and their 4 children, along with the family's dogs. Now, a reason the bodies, they were buried in the garden, and he had actually, bought shovels and stuff. So there's no question he killed them. There's just no question at all. And it seemed like the dogs, after he had buried the rest of them, the dogs started barking. First of all, how did he do it? He gave them some kind of drugs to make them sleep, and then he shot them in their sleep. And then but there was one boy who wasn't home yet. So then the next day, that boy came home and he killed that boy too, because he was older. And then the dogs started barking, probably because they didn't know what happened to all the people in the house. And they started barking nonstop. So he killed both of the dogs. And so I buried them all. So anyway, but what he did was, on the day that he killed as far as I can see, that he killed his wife and most of the children, he was it texted or did he call his sister? Just the way this went down and the things he did to try to cover these things up. Where's the phone call? He made his phone call. I believe it was his sister, because the sister's still saying he didn't do anything because the sister is in denial. So where's the sister call? All right. Okay. His sister was Christine. So I think that night he had called up and said, hey, we were just out to eat. We watched a movie, whatever. We did all these things. And now I had a chance to call you, which is interesting because what he's trying to set up is everything is fine and dandy, even though they're all dead now, but everything's fine and dandy, and say you wouldn't have any suspicions. Then he told her that they were going into a witness protection program in the US. And so it says here, he wrote this letter about that, that he would, that he was innocent in going into this witness protection program. Even though Christine, her sister, initially doubted the authenticity of the letter, claiming all these things and claiming her brother was innocent, she began stating to the media that basically Xaveier and his family left for the United States because their safety was threatened in France. The bodies found under the patio can't be those of Agnes and her children. She believes the information leaked to the media originates from sources with an interest in making the family disappear. In 2013, in the blog she created with her husband, she mentions an email that her brother wrote to two friends in July 2010. He wrote of, quote, accidents which might befall the family, and ended with the words, so I hope that even after a police investigation, my parents, brothers, and sisters will never be led to believe that I intentionally caused these accidents, even if the evidence is strong. So the sister believes he's innocent because of this. No. That's what he's saying, because he killed them all. And he actually told his wife, somebody had asked me, is there any like information early on that your husband is going to knock you off? I mean, are there like signs of these things? Well, one of the signs was he told his wife like years before that if his whole family died, it was okay. And basically, I can't find the exact quote, but it's kind of creepy. I mean, when somebody says that to you, you want to believe them. Let me see if I can find the statement, because I thought it was a really interesting statement. It's a very long Wikipedia page. Let's see if I can find it, because it's just a great statement that if that's your husband, you might want to think about. Oh, here we go. Agnes. So one time in 2004, and now we're talking 7 years prior to this murder, this family annihilation. She described the difficulties she and her husband faced. I don't know what difficulties were, but things weren't going well. And stated he had commented to her that a group death as a family would not be a catastrophe. In my opinion, that's when you get your children and get the hell out of there. And she didn't. And eventually that catastrophe occurred. Only he didn't take out himself. He just disappeared. Some people think he committed suicide. I disagree with that. I think if he had wanted to commit suicide and do one of the murder-suicide things, he would have done it right there in the house. Just kill everybody, and that's that. No, he escaped someplace. They've never found him. He seems to be somewhat clever about, in some ways he seems like an idiot, saying the things that he did and thinking, okay, you're going to believe these things? And clearly leaving evidence that he killed them all. I mean, burying the bodies is usually evidence that you did it. In other words, if a stranger came in or somebody had vengeance thing came in and shot everybody, they would just leave the bodies where they fall. But somebody goes to all the work of burying them. Usually the person knew them really, really well, like the person who lived with them. So clearly he was just giving himself time to escape. He wasn't trying to kill himself. Where is he? They don't know. They haven't found him yet. So he's somewhere out there. A decade later, they have not caught up with him. So apparently he's done something right to get away with it. But I think it's just kind of a fascinating story. He sounds self-absorbed. Well, there's that. Let's see. I'm not sure. I'm looking at sometimes things are out of order when I look at the comments. So yeah, true, Molly. He qualifies as a slow family and family dog annihilator. Well, he did what he could when he needed to do it. So the family was there except for that older son. So he got rid of them, and then the son came home and he did him in. And then I don't know if he would have killed the dogs if they hadn't been barking like that. So situational crimes, as I point out, and he's a lot of mass murders of family are situational crimes. Why do I say that? It's because they're not serial killers. That's not their aim. It's at a certain point, they don't like the life that they have. This situation becomes unpleasant for them. So they fix the situation. And that'll go for dogs too. So when you're talking about a psychopath, and you are talking about a psychopath here, every person and animal is a thing, okay? Because I see this all the time. Well, the man loved his dog. No, he people love their cars, but the cars are things, and they may be sad when they love their car, but the car got in a wreck. And you feel sad you lost the car. Well, it's the same thing for an animal, for a psychopath. They like the dog. They might like the dog a lot. They may even love the dog. But the dog is annoying. They'll get rid of it. Because they don't have empathy for the dog, only for themselves. And they may even feel sad they had to get rid of the dog. But they'll still do it. They may feel a little sad they had to get rid of the whole family, especially those little ones. But, you got to do what you got to do. That's the way they think. It's quite creepy. Yeah, I mean, imagine that's a lot of people. I mean, those kids, they seemed like they had a pretty good life too. I mean, they were doing well. It wasn't like they were living a shabby life and struggling along. They were going to college, and the kids were doing well. And they had a whole lives ahead of them. Or they'd probably be very successful and get married and have children themselves. And yeah, they got stuck with him. And did she know something was up with him? Probably. So again, there's two people that end up in marital situations. One is somebody's so very, very gullible, and they make the psychopaths make sure they're very, very gullible. And then there's others who, maybe they were younger when they got married and just a little naive. And then after they get married, they start realizing this is not right. And there are those signs. But then what do you do with them? What do you do with the signs? Do you sometimes people say, well, you're just being picky. You should just, why are you being so picky? Why don't you, nobody's perfect. And they talk you out of it, especially if you have children. You're like, oh man, I know. And of course I'm not perfect either. So I wouldn't want him to leave me just because I was whatever. So it becomes this thing where you struggle with trying to figure out whether you're dealing with somebody you shouldn't be dealing with, or you're just being, overly dramatic. And sometimes by the time you figure it out, it's too late. And so I think that's what happened to this woman. Even though he said things that concerned her, even if he says those things, the rest of the time he seems normal. Like after he says something creepy, you go, well, that's creepy. And then you have dinner and he's happy and patting the children on the head and everything's good. And you think, well, maybe he didn't mean it the way I took it. Until one day you realize he did mean it. Really, really sad. Oof. No, Michaela. Well, there is that. Sometimes it's, yeah. He had financial issues. Yeah, he did. And usually with there's actually, I think, a whole show on this. I wasn't going to do it I'm only doing a Wikipedia read on this. I'm not doing a whole show on the case. I was just looking at the issues of would you know? Yes, he was a very smart guy, had a good education, but he did a lot of kind of stupid things financially, tried to run a little, kind of sort of scam things and stuff like that. So I'm going to say that there was evidence that he wasn't an overly ethical person. And that's, again, information. But when you have too many kids, like, all those kids, it's hard to just take away their daddy, take away their home, because you file for a divorce, you lose your home, they lose their dad, then it's a whole big fat mess, and then you got who's taking care of the kids and how much money do you have to survive, and it's so overwhelming that you say, well, okay, maybe I'm just exaggerating. He's not that bad, and if he is pretty crappy, I'll just wait till the kids grow up and go away from home, and then I'll divorce the guy, and then he kills you. So that kind of sucks. Lauren says he had been expecting to inherit from his father once his father died, but then he didn't really gain anything, and he was having financial aid. I think that is true. I think that's reasonable to say that. And again, why? Sorry. Oops. Sorry. Okay. This one. Why do people stay? Well, again, leaving is complicated. It's never that easy, and that once, especially the children come along, because it's one thing to be able to leave when it's just you. Especially if you haven't pissed off all your relatives, you may be able to leave and have a place to stay and get yourself together, even if you never, whatever, even if you have to lose stuff in your house or whatever, you at least save yourself and you can take care of yourself. But when you have kids in tow, it gets really, really tricky. Where are you going to go live? Will you lose your home? Are you going to go live in some shabby apartment? Are you got what about the custody issues and the custody battles? And then if your girlfriend is Elizabeth Johnson, she just takes your baby and runs, even though you went to court for the custody stuff. It's life is not that easy sometimes. Yeah. I wonder where he went. They've looked everywhere in monasteries and all kinds of places trying to locate him. I don't know. That's why sometimes some of them believe he is dead because they can't find him. Like, in other words, he just jumped off a cliff and went into the sea or something. Killed himself someplace isolated. And that's why they can't find him. I just don't believe it. I think that this guy is too self-absorbed, too into himself, too wanting to do whatever he wanted to do. And he worked so hard to get rid of his family. Why would you work that hard to get rid of your family if you're going to kill yourself? You know what I mean? And all the burying and stuff. He planned this whole thing, even the letters that, I'm going into witness protection, all that garbage, because he wanted people to believe that, that he had to go someplace and was under protection, so he could disappear. But I say he wouldn't go through all that if he's just going to kill himself anyway. It's just not worth the effort. Just shoot yourself after you kill the rest of them, So Emile says, I can't believe he killed himself either. I think he had another woman and changed his looks. Well, there's always that possibility. I never heard of another woman yet, but I'm late. I have a church service every Thursday. Hi, Lila, at 7 p.m. Oh, well, now I don't know what we're talking about now. That was a long story on the guy's name I can't pronounce. So what was his name? Let's see. Xaveier, Pierre, Marie, Dupont, de Ligonnes. I don't know. That might be a really embarrassing, insulting French accent. I don't know how to pronounce the words without doing that. So it doesn't work too well for me. Let's see one more thing before we go. I got just a few seconds. What was I going to talk about? Oh, so I was asked to talk about this Alexi Treviso. She's the one that went to the hospital and she was they're having pains and stuff, and then she went to the bathroom, had the baby in the bathroom, killed it, and then 3 months later she's at the prom right here. And people ask me, what kind of girl is she, and what's up with her mother, and what's up with her boyfriend? Yeah, there's no way she didn't look pregnant somewhere along the way, and that they didn't all know it. But from her behaviors, again, I think she exhibits certain behaviors which might be situational kinds of psychopathy, where that child, she didn't really want to deal with it because she had other things she wanted to do. She had a boyfriend and she had a mom. I'm going to say she wanted to have that kid. She had support. I don't think it was a case where, she was desperate. And I had to think that her mother knew. I mean, what was she? Because I've seen some pictures of her like in her like cheerleading outfit or whatever, and her stomach is like big enough where you look at her and go, "Are you pregnant?" And I think what we have is, who knows, maybe the kind of mom who lets her daughter run all over her and is afraid to say anything because she doesn't want her daughter to not like her, or her daughter's a very manipulative psychopath. I don't know. She's such a manipulative psychopath that she's got her mother under control, or maybe her mother has her own issues. And so it could be, sometimes you have a person who also has a personality disorder as a parent, and then that's why the kid is messed up. So the personality disorders play off each other, and the boyfriend's probably the guy I always call the dolt, where she's like, oh, I don't know. But, she kills a baby, and then life goes on like nothing happened. That says a lot about the mother, the daughter, and the boyfriend. And yeah, what did she get? I forgot what she got for. Did she get charged? She got something very. I don't know. Maybe she hasn't been charged yet. Let me see if I can find it. Since I've lost everything today on my thing here. What did they give her? Okay, she was seen at the prom, and then what happened to her? What did they get her for? She initially maintained that infant was stillborn, but all the evidence shows that that really didn't happen. That she did give birth to the baby. She dumped it. And then they believe she did kill it. They eventually ruled it a homicide. But then what happened? A few hours after the incident, the guy admitted to being the father of the child, but did not mention whether he previously knew his girlfriend was pregnant. Well, I'm going to say this. If you got her pregnant, you're having sex with her. I'm going to say if you got her pregnant 9 months ago, you wouldn't stop having sex with her. And I'm pretty sure if you're having sex with a girl who's 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months pregnant, you're going to feel her belly is awfully large and hard, and that baby's going ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. So yeah, don't tell me she wasn't pregnant. You didn't know. She said her hips were hurting bad. I asked if anything else was hurting, and she said just everything. Okay, that's your story. Is he sticking with it? She was arrested and booked on May 10th. Then she was released and permitted to finish the school year without an ankle monitor or house arrest while she awaits trial. So she could go to her prom. That is disgusting. I mean, she's up on a charge of murder and she goes to the prom. First of all, there we go. The parent allows her to go to the prom. I fault the parents right there. That's ridiculous. And I don't think the school should let her come to the prom either. She's up on charges of murder. She should not be allowed to go. The jury trial is set for October 2nd, 2023. So let's see what happens then. It'll be interesting because she'll probably get off on very, very little charges. That's my belief. They're going to feel sorry for her somehow, because that's what happens with women who kill children. Apparently, it's like, well, they didn't really mean it. They didn't really mean to do it. Oh, before I go, let me mention the guy here. Okay, this is the guy. Almost forgot to mention this. This is the murders out in our Oregon. Okay, this guy has been arrested in connection with the four women who were murdered. And people were really pissed off because the police would not admit these 4 women were killed by a serial killer. The Portland murders. All right. Now, first of all, there's 2 reasons why they won't say it's a serial killer. First of all, they weren't all dumped in the same spot. They were women who were working or in drugs. So sex workers or in drugs or both. And they were found quite a distance apart from each other. And when you are in these situations where you are homeless, drug using, and in prostitution, anything can happen to you. Anything can go wrong and you can get killed. So that 4 women who weren't all dumped in the same place and weren't all killed in the same way, you can't really say that it's a serial killer. So the police said, stop jumping to that conclusion. And people were really pissed off. And here's the way I say things. If I would be more happy to say this. At this point in time, if I were doing a press conference, we have 4 women who were murdered. who have similar lifestyles. And we do not know who killed the 4 women, if it was one person or more than one person killing at different times. We don't have evidence of that. We do want to give you their names and their locations where they hung out and the locations where the bodies were found, so that if you have a tip that connects any one person to one victim or more than one victim, please let us know. We can't say this is a serial killer. We could say it's a possible serial killer. That's what I would have said. However, they kind of denied it. But now they've said they've arrested. They have a person of interest. This person of interest. His name is Jesse Calhoun. He was connected to the deaths of 4 women, but have not described. They have not described him as 4 women, but have not described him as a serial killer. So, okay. I'm not sure how he's connected to the deaths of the 4 women and not be a serial killer. And I don't know what's connecting him to the deaths of the women. All right. They've officially identified Jesse Lee Calhoun as a person of interest in the mystery deaths. And again, person of interest is not a suspect. And you can always have a person of interest and turns out not him. Or maybe he did kill one, but not the others. 4 women that police say are linked. Now they're saying they're linked. Okay, now what is linking them? And I do not know. Because you can either have the 4 women linked as serial homicides by something like DNA in all 4 cases matches. Therefore, the 4 are linked. Or Jesse Calhoun was the last person seen with all 4 women before they went missing. That would be a pretty good linkage too. And I don't know why every time I hear Jesse Calhoun, I just think of a cowboy. Is there some cowboys like Jesse Calhoun? The 38-year-old has not been charged with any crimes related to the investigation. He is currently in prison on unrelated charges after being arrested on 6th of June for a parole violation. They show that he has an extensive criminal history. He has a history of assaults and burglaries, but not so far not homicide. He was released in, this is just crazy stuff. He was released in 2021 after being granted a conditional commutation by then Oregon Governor Kate Brown due to his service as an inmate firefighter during the wildfires and the fear of COVID-19 spreading in prisons. They let this guy out early. Meanwhile, a woman who's saying that she's Calhoun's girlfriend has said that he had links to 2 of the 4 victims. Revealing that Calhoun and Ashley Real, I don't know how to pronounce her name, have been seeing each other on and off for about a year, and he will provide Bridget Webster with drugs in exchange for sex. Okay, so he's a person of interest because he has connections to 2 women. Does that mean he killed them? No, it doesn't. Okay, so everybody's going crazy. Oh, we always knew it was a serial killer. The police lied to us, blah, blah, blah. No, I think in this case, I've seen the information before. I think the police have not done a good job in communicating properly. And that's why I prefer to have a good press conference with an unemotional fellow standing up there, or woman, person, who then gives the information I just said, the way I would had just said it. That's the way I would do it, because you want information coming in from the public, but you don't want to say things that aren't true. And you don't want people to over speculate, but you do want them to be aware of what information you need. And if there is a danger out there, you also want people to be aware of that. But it's very difficult in cases where women are involved in this kind of lifestyle to know what the issues are. So far he's been supposedly connected to 2, but that's as what? He was a boyfriend of 1, and what was the other thing? Let's see. What was the other thing? So he is on and off boyfriend to 1 girl, and the other girl, he gave her drugs in exchange for sex. Does that mean he killed them? No, it doesn't. It'll make him a person of interest, and I don't know if he's even a suspect yet. He's a person of interest because if they can't actually prove he killed them, they have to find out where he was when they died, if there's any physical evidence that links them, and then what about the other 2? So it's more complicated than people think, and I just wish people would start to understand a little bit more of how things work. Just be helpful. Anyway, I'll check your comments, and then that'll be it. I think that's the last thing I'll talk about. I read they all hung out at a convenience center. Well, you know how that is. I don't know where you read that, and I don't know if it's true. And, just so it's hard to say. And if it's this guy, he has contacts. They wouldn't need to be at a convenience center for him to be the one who killed them if he actually has relationships with them. So it would be more serial killer-like if they were being picked up at the convenience center and taken someplace and raped and murdered. But I don't even know that these women were raped. Some of them, I don't even think they. I forgot what the. Let's see. One woman was found in a rural area with blunt force trauma to her head and neck. Let's see. I'm trying to see what the other ones were. Yeah, I'm not sure what the cause of death on each one of these was and whether any of them were raped or not raped. It's hard to say. So I say it's not worth jumping to conclusions on because we just don't know. Well, if you want drugs more than you want dinner and flowers, you're going to exchange sex for drugs. That's the way it works in reality. All right. Anyway, that's it. I wanted to let you know that the reason I didn't talk about the JonBenet case and Oliva on his supposed confession and the handwriting. There's a person out on the internet, and she's a handwriting analyst, and she claims that Oliva is the guy who wrote the note. She's proven it by her expert skills, and she wants you all to know that she said it there first, which I find kind of an interesting comment. So I'm going to do it probably tomorrow because I'm tired. I'm going to do a show on the issues of JonBenet DNA and the handwriting and what I think of those two things. And yeah, so I'm going to do a show on that tomorrow when I'm awake. And so I'm glad you were here tonight. It was fun as usual. And I will see you. Maybe. Well, I won't see you for that, but I'll see you for the coming to the case show on the weekend, which I still haven't figured out which one I'm doing yet. So I'll figure that out tomorrow after I do the JonBenet thing. And then I'll send you all a link. I'm probably going to do it on Saturday because Sunday is my birthday. So not that I necessarily have any great plans, but oh yes. Okay. That was you, Adini, that one about Maya. Whether they're ever going to find her or not. And he has been charged, but I just question whether they're going to be able to prove anything. Do I think he did something to her? Yes. But oh, one more thing that always creeps me out. His parents have custody of the children. And this always bothers me tremendously because I always think that if the person is a suspect, he's a murder suspect, that he killed their mother. I don't understand why the grandparents have the children. I think the murder victim's parents should have the children because I'm going to say if your son killed that woman, maybe there's a problem with your upbringing, how you raised that kid. I wouldn't want the grandchildren to be with you. I want them to be with the other person. Of course, she was cheating on her husband, supposedly. So, yeah, problematic, but yeah. Yeah. I look cloudy today. Really? Interesting. I can't see that from my end of it. Is it really bad? That's interesting. Everybody said they could see me fine. I hope it's not as awful as you think it is, but I have noticed there's a problem. We just got brand new internet in tonight. They've redone everything, so it supposedly should be good internet. Got lights on, unless something's wrong with the camera. So if something's wrong with the camera, hopefully I'll fix it before I do the case show, because at least Hangouts are more relaxing. So not bad, but cloudy. I'm gonna go. I'll look as soon as I finish the show and see what the heck is wrong. That's freaky. Okay, well, thank you for telling me, so I'll pay attention. I don't mind cloudy if it makes my face look smoother and less wrinkled. Lisa says look fine. Okay, well, I'll check it out. I have noticed that last time I took my thumbnails, I thought the thumbnails looked kind of like grainy, and I thought that was weird. And I don't know. So I'll go check it out later. It's either your side of it or my side of it. I don't know. It's those technical issues. So annoying. So annoying. Anyway, everybody else says I look fine. We'll find out. So if I look fine to everybody else, maybe it's your camera or your screen or something. I'm hoping it's on your end. I hate it when it's on my end. Anyway, hopefully I'll see you guys on Saturday. Wait, tomorrow that the JonBenet thing will be out. So check it out. And hope you find it interesting, because I think this whole thing is crazy what's going on with this Oliva guy. It's just nuts. So anyway, thank you for being here. Bye.